Fail like a pro. Why the most successful people lose more than you. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. What if I told you that the most successful people in the world have failed more times than you have even tried? It sounds counterintuitive, doesn't it? We are taught to believe that winners win because they avoid failure. That the best athletes, entrepreneurs, and leaders have something special, some secret ability that keeps them from making mistakes. But the truth is, the people you admire didn't succeed because they were smarter, luckier, or more talented. They succeeded because they failed. A lot. Failure is not the enemy, it is the process. Yet, many people spend their entire lives avoiding failure. They hesitate to take risks, they overthink every decision, and they play it safe because they are terrified of getting it wrong. But here's the irony: avoiding failure is the fastest way to fail completely. The people who accomplish great things aren't the ones who never fall, they are the ones who fall the most and keep getting back up. The problem is that society has conditioned us to fear failure. From an early age, we are rewarded for getting things right and punished for making mistakes. Schools teach us that failure is bad. Workplaces make us believe that failure is embarrassing. Social media only shows the highlight reel of success, making failure look like something that happens to other people. But that is a lie. Behind every success story is a long trail of failures that no one talks about. This book is here to change the way you see failure. You will learn why the world's top performers fail more than anyone else, and how you can start failing like they do. You will discover how to turn setbacks into stepping stones, how to bounce back faster, and how to stop letting fear hold you back. By the time you finish reading, failure will no longer feel like something to be ashamed of. It will feel like exactly what it is, a tool for success. So if you've ever hesitated to take action because you were afraid to fail, this book is for you. If you've ever let a mistake shake your confidence, this book is for you. If you're ready to stop fearing failure and start using it to your advantage, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Success Paradox: Why Winning Requires Losing. Most people believe success is about getting things right on the first try. They admire the people who seem to have a natural talent, the ones who make everything look effortless. But the truth is, those people don't exist. The real winners, the billionaires, the world champions, the icons, have one thing in common: they have failed more times than most people have even attempted. Look at any major success story, and you'll find a graveyard of failures behind it. Elon Musk, before becoming the face of Tesla and SpaceX, was nearly bankrupt after multiple failed rocket launches. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job because she was deemed unfit for TV. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. These people didn't just fail once or twice, they failed repeatedly, spectacularly, and publicly. The difference between them and the average person isn't that they failed less, it's that they failed more and kept going. While most people take failure as a sign to stop, successful people see it as a stepping stone. They don't take it personally, they don't dwell on it. They extract the lesson, adjust their approach, and try again. The reason failure feels so final to most people is because society conditions us to think that way. Schools punish mistakes. Businesses fire people who mess up. Social media highlights only the wins, never the losses. No one posts about the time they applied for 20 jobs and got rejected from all of them. No one brags about the business idea that flopped or the time they lost thousands of dollars on a bad investment. This creates the illusion that success happens in a straight line, that winners win because they are just built differently, that they have something you don't. But they don't. They have simply built the skill of failing and recovering quickly. The truth is, if you want to be successful, you need to rewire your brain to embrace failure. Instead of seeing it as an end, you need to see it as part of the process. Every failure contains data. Every mistake is a piece of information that tells you what works and what doesn't. The faster you fail, the faster you collect that data, and the faster you adjust to get it right. Think about the process of learning anything new. When a child learns to walk, they don't stop trying after they fall. They don't sit on the floor and think, maybe walking just isn't for me. They keep going, failing hundreds of times until they get it. The same principle applies to everything else in life. The problem is, as we grow older, we lose that instinct. We let embarrassment, fear, and pride stop us from pushing through the learning phase. But if you look at the people who achieve massive success, they've trained themselves to see failure as neutral. It's not bad, it's not good, it just is. It's an unavoidable part of growth, like stretching a muscle before it gets stronger. The only difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that the successful ones are willing to go through more failure than anyone else. If you can learn to shift your mindset, if you can start seeing failure as a tool instead of an obstacle, your entire approach to success will change. You will take more risks, move faster, and innovate more boldly than those around you. Most people hesitate because they are trying to avoid failing. But the irony is, avoiding failure is the fastest way to fail completely. The only real failure is quitting. Everything else is just feedback. If you can internalize that, if you can truly believe it, then no setback will ever stop you. You will become unstoppable, not because you never fail, but because failure will no longer have the power to slow you down. You don't need to avoid failure. You need to fail like a pro. Chapter 2. The Myth of Perfection: How Society Trains Us to Fear Failure. From a young age, we are taught that perfection is the goal. Get straight A's, follow the rules, avoid mistakes. Schools reward students for the right answers, not for effort or creativity. At home, parents celebrate achievements, but rarely encourage risk-taking. Society drills into us that mistakes equal failure and failure equals incompetence. By the time we reach adulthood, most of us are terrified of getting things wrong. This conditioning creates a perfectionist mindset that paralyzes people. It makes them overthink, procrastinate, and hesitate. They fear failure so much that they would rather do nothing than risk messing up. Instead of taking action, they plan endlessly, waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect opportunity, the perfect idea. But perfection is a myth. It doesn't exist. Look at the most successful people in any industry, and you'll see a pattern. None of them waited until they were ready. They launched before they were fully prepared. They took action before they had all the answers. They embraced imperfection because they understood that progress beats perfection every time. Consider the first iPhone. It had no front camera, no app store, and a terrible battery. By today's standards, it was far from perfect. Yet, Apple released it anyway. They understood that if they waited for the perfect product, they would never launch. Instead, they released the best version they had and improved it over time. Now, millions of people line up for every new iPhone, even though none of them are perfect. The same applies to people. If you wait until you feel perfectly ready, you will never start. If you wait until you are fully confident, you will never take the leap. The truth is, no one is ever completely ready. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. Successful people start before they feel ready. They accept that their first attempts will be flawed, but they know that the only way to improve is through action. The fear of imperfection is what keeps most people stuck. They assume that if something isn't flawless, it's a failure. But the world doesn't reward perfection. It rewards execution. The best-selling books aren't the ones written perfectly, they are the ones that got published. The most successful businesses aren't the ones that launched without a hitch, they are the ones that adapted and improved. Most people see mistakes as proof that they aren't good enough. But the truth is, mistakes are proof of progress. If you are failing, it means you are trying. If you are struggling, it means you are pushing your limits. The only way to truly fail is to do nothing at all. Think about how people learn a new skill. A beginner guitarist doesn't expect to play flawlessly on the first day. They hit wrong notes, struggle with finger placement, and sound terrible at first. But over time, those mistakes lead to improvement. The same applies to any skill, whether it's public speaking, entrepreneurship, writing, or leadership. The only way to get better is to go through the phase where you are bad at it. Yet, most people refuse to let themselves go through that phase. They are so afraid of looking foolish that they never even try. They think successful people are born with talent, but in reality, those people just allowed themselves to be bad long enough to get good. The irony is that perfectionism doesn't prevent failure, it guarantees it. If you never start, you never improve. If you never take risks, you never grow. If you never put yourself out there, you never succeed. The sooner you let go of perfection, the faster you will make progress. Start before you're ready. Take action before you have all the answers. Fail fast, learn fast, and improve along the way. If you can do that, you will be miles ahead of those still waiting for the perfect moment that will never come. Chapter 3. How the greatest minds in history failed their way to the top. History remembers success, but it is built on a foundation of failure. The people we admire today, entrepreneurs, inventors, artists, and athletes, were once people who failed so often that most would have given up. The difference is, they didn't. They understood that failure wasn't a stop sign, it was a stepping stone. Take Thomas Edison, for example. Before he invented the light bulb, he failed thousands of times. When asked about his repeated failures, he famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Most people would have stopped after 10 failures, maybe even 100. But Edison knew that failure wasn't a reflection of his ability, it was a necessary part of the process. The same is true for Walt Disney. Before he created one of the most successful entertainment empires in history, he was fired from a newspaper job because they claimed he lacked imagination. He later started an animation company that went bankrupt. Most people would have taken that as a sign to quit. Instead, he pushed forward, eventually creating Mickey Mouse and revolutionizing animation forever. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, was rejected by 12 publishers before one finally gave her a chance. She was broke, a single mother, and struggling with depression. She could have easily given up, believing she wasn't good enough. Instead, she kept submitting her manuscript until someone said yes. That decision made her one of the most successful authors of all time. Failure isn't unique to a few individuals. It is the universal path to greatness. The problem is, most people don't last long enough to reach success. They take failure as proof that they aren't capable, when in reality, it's simply part of the process. If you study any great figure, you'll find a pattern: they fail more than others, but they keep going anyway. Michael Jordan, often considered the greatest basketball player of all time, didn't make his high school varsity team on his first try. He used that rejection as motivation, practicing harder than ever. Years later, he said, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed." The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It is the willingness to fail more times than anyone else. Most people avoid failure. The greats seek it out because they know it means they are growing. Every failed attempt teaches them something new. Every rejection is one step closer to the breakthrough. Think about it this way: if you knew you had to fail 20 times before reaching success, would you still be afraid of failure? Probably not. You would see each failure as a necessary step, a countdown to success. The problem is, most people don't know how many failures it will take, so they stop too soon. They give up right before they would have made it. The most successful people in history understood that failure is not the opposite of success, it is the pathway to it. They didn't avoid it, they embraced it. They knew that every failure carried a lesson, and if they could learn from it, they would eventually get to where they wanted to be. If you want to achieve something great, you have to be willing to fail. Not just once but repeatedly. You have to get comfortable with rejection, setbacks, and mistakes. The people who change the world aren't the ones who never fail. They are the ones who fail the most, learn the fastest, and never stop moving forward. Chapter 4. Failure Science: Why Your Brain Resists It, and How to Rewire It. Failure feels bad for a reason. Your brain is wired to avoid it at all costs. When you fail, your brain reacts as if you are in danger. It triggers the same fight or flight response that ancient humans experience when facing a predator. Your heart rate spikes, your palms sweat, and your mind races to find a way out. This is why people go to extreme lengths to avoid failure, even when the risks are low. The brain treats failure as a threat because, for most of human history, mistakes could be fatal. If an early human miscalculated while hunting or misread an enemy's intentions, it could mean death. Over thousands of years, the brain adapted to associate failure with danger. But in today's world, failure rarely has life or death consequences. Yet, our brains still react as if it does. This fear of failure keeps people stuck. It makes them hesitate before speaking up, avoid risks, and stay in their comfort zones. It convinces them that failing means they are not good enough. But that reaction is outdated. The world has changed, and failure is no longer a threat. It is a tool for growth. To succeed, you must rewire your brain to see failure not as a danger but as a stepping stone. The first step is recognizing that failure is just data. It is not a reflection of your worth, intelligence, or potential. It is simply feedback. When a scientist runs an experiment and gets an unexpected result, they don't take it personally. They analyze the outcome, adjust the variables, and try again. This is how you must treat failure, like an experiment. The second step is to change the way you talk to yourself about failure. Most people internalize failure by saying things like, "I'm not good at this," or "I'll never succeed." These thoughts reinforce the brain's negative reaction to failure. But successful people frame failure differently. Instead of saying, "I'm terrible at this," they say, "I'm learning how to get better." Instead of saying, "I failed," they say, "I gained valuable feedback." This simple shift in language helps the brain reframe failure as part of the learning process. The third step is exposure. The more you experience failure, the less power it has over you. Think about someone who is afraid of public speaking. The first time they step on stage, their heart pounds, and they feel like running away. But if they do it again and again, the fear starts to fade. Their brain learns that public speaking is not a threat. The same applies to failure. The more you fail, the more you realize it won't destroy you. Failure is not something to fear, it is something to train for. The most resilient people have built a high tolerance for failure because they have exposed themselves to it repeatedly. Entrepreneurs launch businesses knowing that some will fail. Athletes train knowing they will lose games. Writers publish books knowing that some may flop. They keep going because they have conditioned themselves to push through failure rather than avoid it. The final step in rewiring your brain is to celebrate small failures. Most people only celebrate success, but successful people celebrate effort. If you try something new and fail, acknowledge it as progress. If you take a risk and it doesn't work out, remind yourself that you are one step closer to success. By rewarding effort instead of just outcomes, you train your brain to embrace challenges instead of fearing them. Failure is not the enemy, your brain's reaction to it is. But you have the power to change that reaction. You can rewire your brain to see failure as an opportunity, not a threat. The more you practice failing, the stronger you become. Eventually, failure will stop feeling like something to fear and start feeling like exactly what it is, a necessary step towards success. Chapter 5. How to fail strategically, turning losses into wins. Failure is only a problem when you don't learn from it. The most successful people don't just fail often, they fail with a purpose. They approach failure like a scientist running an experiment, gathering data, and using that information to improve. They don't see failure as wasted effort, they see it as part of the process. The key is to fail strategically. Failing strategically means knowing the difference between reckless failure and productive failure. Reckless failure is making the same mistake repeatedly without adjusting your approach. It's launching a business without research, taking unnecessary risks, or ignoring clear warning signs. Productive failure, on the other hand, happens when you take a calculated risk, analyze the results, and make improvements based on what you learn. Think about how startups operate. Most don't succeed on the first attempt. Founders often pivot their business models, change their products, or adjust their strategies based on early failures. They don't just throw ideas at the wall and hope something sticks. They gather feedback, refine their approach, and improve with every iteration. The companies that survive are the ones that fail strategically, making each failure a stepping stone rather than a dead end. Athletes apply the same principle. A basketball player who misses a shot doesn't quit the game. Instead, they analyze what went wrong. Was their form off? Was their timing wrong? Did they rush the shot? Then, they adjust and try again. Over time, those adjustments turn into skill. The same applies to anything in life. If you treat every failure as a data point instead of a defeat, you will keep improving. One way to fail strategically is to set up small, controlled failures rather than massive, devastating ones. Instead of quitting your job overnight to start a business with no backup plan, test your idea on a small scale. Instead of investing all your money into a single venture, make smaller, lower-risk investments to see what works. Strategic failures are planned, manageable, and designed to provide insight rather than destruction. Another key to failing strategically is keeping track of lessons learned. Most people experience failure and move on without reflection. But the best way to extract value from failure is to document what went wrong and why. High performers keep journals, analyze mistakes, and track patterns in their failures. They don't just fail and forget, they fail and learn. Feedback is another essential part of strategic failure. The most successful people seek criticism because they know that outside perspectives can reveal blind spots. They don't hide their failures or make excuses. Instead, they ask questions. What could I have done differently? What didn't go as planned? What adjustments should I make next time? This mindset turns failure into a learning tool rather than a source of shame. Embracing strategic failure also requires persistence. The biggest mistake people make is quitting too soon. Many breakthroughs happen just beyond the point where most people give up. The difference between success and failure is often one more attempt, one more adjustment, one more lesson applied. If you view failure as a necessary part of growth, you won't be discouraged when things don't go as planned. You'll see it as an opportunity to refine your approach. The truth is, no one gets it right the first time. Success is built on layers of failed attempts, each one getting you closer to your goal. The people who achieve great things aren't lucky, and they aren't perfect. They are simply willing to fail more, learn faster, and keep going when others stop. Failing smart means failing with purpose. Every setback isn't a stop sign, it's a setup for your next move. When you learn to use failure as fuel, nothing can hold you back. You won't be unstoppable because you never fail, but because you've mastered the art of flipping failure into your greatest advantage. Chapter 6. Resilience over talent. Why persistence beats raw ability. Most people believe that talent is the deciding factor in success. They think that the best athletes, entrepreneurs, and creators were born with an innate ability that set them apart. But talent alone is never enough. The real difference between those who succeed and those who don't is resilience, the ability to keep going when things get hard. Raw talent might give someone a head start, but it doesn't guarantee long-term success. Plenty of talented people never reach their potential because they lack the persistence to push through failure. On the other hand, people with average talent but relentless determination often surpass those who started with more natural ability. The ability to keep going after failure is what separates high achievers from everyone else. Think about the people who are the best in their fields. Most of them were not the most talented when they started. They simply refused to quit. They showed up every day, practiced longer, worked harder, and kept improving while others gave up. Their resilience turned them into the best. A perfect example is Stephen King. His first novel, Carrie, was rejected 30 times before it was published. Frustrated, he threw the manuscript in the trash. His wife retrieved it and encouraged him to keep trying. Had he given up, he would have never become one of the most successful authors in history. His talent wasn't enough, his persistence made the difference. Resilience is what allows people to bounce back from failure instead of letting it define them. It is what makes someone try again after rejection, keep practicing after mistakes, and stay committed when progress feels slow. Without resilience, even the most talented individuals struggle to achieve their goals. The reason most people quit too soon is that failure feels personal. They see it as a reflection of their ability rather than part of the process. But failure doesn't mean you aren't good enough, it means you are learning. Every mistake, every setback, and every rejection is simply a lesson in disguise. Developing resilience requires a shift in mindset. Instead of seeing challenges as obstacles, resilient people see them as opportunities to grow. Instead of feeling defeated by failure, they use it as motivation to improve. This mindset allows them to keep pushing forward, even when things don't go as planned. One way to build resilience is to focus on progress rather than perfection. If you expect instant success, you will get discouraged when things take longer than expected. But if you measure your growth over time, you will see that every failure is actually a step forward. Small improvements add up, and those who stay consistent will eventually surpass those who rely on talent alone. Another way to strengthen resilience is to develop a habit of taking action, no matter what. Successful people don't wait until they feel motivated or confident. They take action even when they are uncertain, scared, or frustrated. They understand that momentum is built through action, and confidence follows effort, not the other way around. Resilience also requires a willingness to embrace discomfort. Growth happens outside of your comfort zone, and the more you push yourself into challenging situations, the stronger you become. The people who succeed aren't necessarily the ones who start with the most talent. They are the ones who are willing to endure discomfort, take risks, and keep going when others stop. The truth is, talent is overrated. It might open doors, but only resilience will keep them open. The world is filled with talented people who never lived up to their potential because they lacked the persistence to keep going when things got hard. But those who are willing to fail, adapt, and keep pushing forward will always come out ahead. Resilience is the most powerful skill you can develop. It ensures that no failure is final, no setback is permanent, and no goal is out of reach. The only way to lose is to quit. If you refuse to give up, success is inevitable. Chapter 7. The Fail Like a Pro System, a step-by-step guide to mastering failure. Failure is not random. It follows patterns, and if you understand those patterns, you can use failure as a tool for success. The difference between those who fail productively and those who let failure defeat them comes down to their system. Successful people don't just fail and hope for the best. They have a process for learning from mistakes, adjusting their approach, and improving over time. The first step in the Fail Like a Pro system is reframing failure. Instead of seeing failure as proof that you aren't good enough, see it as proof that you are trying. Every failure means you are pushing beyond your comfort zone and learning something new. If you never fail, it means you are not taking risks or challenging yourself. The fastest way to reframe failure is to ask yourself a simple question: what did I learn from this? The moment you shift your focus from disappointment to learning, you take control of the failure. The second step is analyzing the failure. Most people experience failure and move on too quickly without understanding what went wrong. Successful people break down their failures and look for patterns. What specific action led to the failure? Was it a lack of preparation, a poor strategy, or bad timing? By identifying the cause, you can prevent making the same mistake in the future. The third step is adjusting your strategy. Once you understand why you failed, the next step is to make changes. If a business idea didn't work, refine the concept. If a job interview went poorly, practice answering common questions. If a workout routine didn't deliver results, adjust your training plan. The key is to experiment with different approaches until you find what works. Failure only becomes a real problem when you repeat the same mistakes without making adjustments. The fourth step is taking action again, immediately. One of the biggest mistakes people make is letting failure create hesitation. After a setback, they second-guess themselves, overthink, and delay trying again. But the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to take action. The best way to overcome failure is to keep moving. Even if you haven't figured everything out yet, taking action prevents fear from gaining control. The faster you fail and adjust, the faster you reach success. The fifth step is building failure tolerance. Just like lifting weights makes your muscles stronger, experiencing failure makes you mentally stronger. The more you fail and recover, the easier it becomes to handle setbacks. Over time, failure stops feeling like a crisis and starts feeling like part of the process. This is what separates high achievers from everyone else. They have failed so many times that failure no longer intimidates them. They have built the resilience to keep going no matter what happens. The final step is celebrating small failures. Most people only celebrate success, but successful people celebrate effort. If you step out of your comfort zone and take a risk, acknowledge that as progress, even if it doesn't work out. If you fail at something, recognize that you just gained valuable experience. By celebrating the process, not just the outcome, you train yourself to embrace challenges rather than avoid them. Mastering failure is not about avoiding mistakes, it's about failing with purpose. Every failure is an opportunity to learn, improve, and grow. The people who win in life are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who fail more, learn faster, and keep going when others stop. If you follow this system, failure will never hold you back again. You will take more risks, move faster, and develop the resilience needed to reach any goal. The only difference between those who succeed and those who don't is their ability to use failure as a tool, rather than a barrier. Once you master that, you will be unstoppable. Chapter 8. The Fear of Judgment, Overcoming the Opinions of Others. Most people are not afraid of failure itself. They are afraid of what others will think when they fail. The fear of judgment keeps people stuck, afraid to take risks, and hesitant to step outside their comfort zones. It is one of the biggest reasons people don't chase their goals, start new projects, or put themselves out there. They worry about looking foolish, being laughed at, or being criticized. But the truth is, no one is thinking about you as much as you think they are. The human brain is wired for social survival. Thousands of years ago, being part of a tribe meant survival, and being rejected could mean death. That instinct still exists today. People avoid failure because they think it will lead to embarrassment, exclusion, or loss of respect. But in reality, most people are too focused on their own problems to care about yours. They might notice your failure for a brief moment, but then they move on, just as you do when you see someone else fail. Even when people do judge, their opinions don't affect your actual results. If you fail at something and someone laughs at you, does that change your ability to improve and try again? If someone criticizes your work, does that make you incapable of succeeding? The only way their judgment can stop you is if you let it. The truth is, people who judge harshly are often the ones who take the fewest risks. They criticize because they are afraid to try themselves. The most successful people rarely spend time tearing others down because they are too busy working on their own goals. If someone is mocking your failures, it usually means they are insecure about their own lack of action. The best way to overcome the fear of judgment is to focus on what matters, your own growth. If you are learning, improving, and pushing yourself forward, the opinions of others become irrelevant. Their words don't pay your bills, build your career, or shape your future. Your actions do. The moment you stop caring about external validation, you gain true freedom to take risks, fail, and succeed on your own terms. Another way to stop fearing judgment is to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? If you fail publicly, will it ruin your life? Will it stop you from trying again? Most of the time, the worst-case scenario is not nearly as bad as we imagine. You fail, you learn, and you move on. The fear of judgment is usually much worse than the judgment itself. It also helps to remember that every successful person was once a beginner. The first time they tried, they probably looked foolish. They probably made mistakes, but they kept going. If they had let the fear of judgment stop them, they never would have improved. No one starts as an expert. The only way to get good at anything is to go through the phase where you are bad at it. The fear of what others think is an illusion that holds too many people back. It makes them live smaller lives, take fewer chances, and settle for less than they are capable of. But the truth is, the people who judge you don't matter. The people who succeed are the ones who ignore the noise, take action, and fail forward. Once you stop fearing judgment, you become unstoppable. You take risks without hesitation, embrace failure without shame, and move forward without waiting for approval. The opinions of others don't build your success. Your willingness to fail, learn, and improve does. If you can truly internalize that, you will never hold yourself back again. Chapter 9. Rejection as a Weapon, Using No to Fuel Your Success. Rejection is one of the most painful forms of failure. It feels personal. Whether it's a job application, a business pitch, or a creative idea, being told no stings. Most people take rejection as a sign that they are not good enough. They let it break their confidence and discourage them from trying again. But rejection is not a dead end. It is a tool, one that, when used correctly, can fuel success instead of stopping it. Every successful person has faced rejection, often more times than they can count. Actors are turned down for roles, entrepreneurs are denied funding, and writers are rejected by publishers. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't is simple. Successful people do not take rejection personally. They see it as information, not an insult. They treat it as feedback, not failure. Walt Disney was told he lacked creativity. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school. Oprah Winfrey was told she wasn't fit for television. If any of them had believed those rejections, their careers would have ended before they even started. But they didn't. They used rejection as fuel, pushing forward instead of backing down. The way you handle rejection determines your success. Most people fear rejection so much that they avoid situations where they might hear no. They don't apply for jobs they really want. They don't pitch their ideas. They don't ask for opportunities. But rejection is not something to avoid, it is something to seek out. The more you expose yourself to it, the less power it has over you. One way to use rejection to your advantage is to analyze it objectively. Why did you get rejected? Was it a lack of preparation? Was your approach wrong? Did you target the wrong audience? Instead of letting rejection discourage you, treat it like an experiment. Each no brings you closer to a yes if you make the right adjustments. Rejection also builds resilience. Every time you face rejection and keep going, you become stronger. The first few rejections hurt the most, but over time they stop feeling like failures and start feeling like steps towards success. You learn to separate your self-worth from external approval, and that makes you unstoppable. Another key to handling rejection is understanding that it is often not about you. People reject things for countless reasons that have nothing to do with quality. A hiring manager might have already chosen a candidate. A publisher might be looking for a different type of book. A customer might not be ready to buy. None of that means you are not good enough. It simply means the timing wasn't right, or the fit wasn't there. Instead of fearing rejection, start tracking it. Challenge yourself to collect a certain number of rejections each week. The more rejections you receive, the more chances you have for success. If you avoid rejection, you also avoid opportunity. The people who achieve the most are usually the ones who have been rejected the most. They kept going when others quit. Rejection is not a sign to stop. It is a sign to refine, adjust, and keep pushing forward. It is proof that you are taking risks, putting yourself out there, and playing the game. Most people are too afraid of hearing no, so they never take their shot. The ones who succeed are those who refuse to let rejection define them. If you can train yourself to see rejection as a necessary part of the journey, you will no longer fear it. You will embrace it. You will chase bigger opportunities, take bolder risks, and put yourself in positions where success is inevitable. Rejection is not a barrier, it is a weapon. The more you use it, the stronger you become. Chapter 10. The Bounce Back Factor: How to Recover from Failure Quickly. Failure happens to everyone, but what separates successful people from everyone else is how fast they recover. Most people let failure linger. They dwell on it, replaying their mistakes over and over in their minds. They lose confidence, hesitate to try again, and sometimes give up entirely. But the ability to bounce back quickly is what determines long-term success. The faster you recover from failure, the faster you can get back to improving, adjusting, and moving forward. The first step in bouncing back is to stop making failure personal. Most people see failure as proof that they are not smart enough, talented enough, or capable enough, but failure is not about who you are, it is about what you did. There is a difference. If you separate failure from your identity, it loses its power over you. Instead of saying, "I failed," say, "That attempt didn't work." This shift in language changes how your brain processes setbacks. The second step is to reflect without dwelling. After a failure, take a moment to analyze what happened. What went wrong? What did you learn? What would you do differently next time? But once you have extracted the lesson, move on. Reflection is useful, but overthinking keeps you stuck. The goal is to learn, adjust, and take action again as soon as possible. The third step is to take immediate action. One of the biggest mistakes people make after failing is waiting too long to try again. The longer you wait, the more fear builds up. If you fail a test, study and retake it as soon as possible. If you lose a sale, contact another potential client right away. If you get rejected, send another application immediately. Action is the antidote to failure. It prevents fear from taking control and keeps you focused on progress. The fourth step is to control your inner dialogue. Your mind will try to convince you that failure means you should quit. It will tell you that you are not good enough, that you should take the safe path, that maybe success isn't for you. But these thoughts are just fear trying to protect you from discomfort. Instead of letting them control you, reframe them. When your mind says, "This isn't working," respond with, "I'm figuring it out." When it says, "I'll never succeed," say, "Every setback is a step forward." The way you talk to yourself after failure determines whether you stay down or get back up. The fifth step is to build a short memory. The best performers in the world, from athletes to entrepreneurs, have a unique ability to forget failures quickly. They don't waste time reliving their mistakes. They analyze, adjust, and move on. The past is over. The only thing that matters is what you do next. The ability to quickly reset your mindset is a superpower that allows you to keep making progress no matter how many times you fall. The final step is to find motivation in failure. Most people use failure as a reason to quit. The most successful people use it as fuel. When Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, he used that rejection to train harder than ever. When J.K. Rowling was rejected by publishers, she kept submitting her book until someone said yes. Failure does not mean stop, it means push harder. If you can turn your failures into motivation, you will become unstoppable. Bouncing back from failure is a skill, and like any skill, it improves with practice. The faster you can recover from setbacks, the more progress you will make over time. Most people fail once and quit. Winners fail 10 times and keep going. The only way to lose for good is to stop trying. If you refuse to quit, success becomes inevitable. Chapter 11. Fail fast, fail smart, speeding up the learning process. Most people try to avoid failure, but the fastest way to succeed is to fail as quickly and intelligently as possible. The longer you wait to take action, the longer it takes to figure out what works. Successful people don't spend years overanalyzing before they start. They take action, fail fast, and adjust quickly. The goal is not to avoid failure but to make it happen sooner so you can learn and improve faster. Failing fast does not mean being reckless. It means testing ideas, taking calculated risks, and gathering feedback as soon as possible. A business that launches quickly can get real customer reactions and adjust accordingly. An entrepreneur who waits for perfection before launching might waste years on an idea that won't work. The faster you fail, the faster you find the right path. One of the best ways to fail fast is to take action before you feel completely ready. Most people wait too long, trying to perfect their skills, plans, or ideas before making a move. But action leads to clarity. You don't know what will work until you try. You can always adjust along the way, but you cannot improve something that doesn't exist. Progress comes from movement, not endless preparation. Another key to failing smart is learning from every mistake. Some people fail repeatedly, but never change their approach. They make the same mistakes over and over. Smart failure means analyzing what went wrong and making adjustments. Every failure contains valuable data if you pay attention. What worked, what didn't, what can be improved. The faster you process this information, the faster you can move forward. Feedback is also crucial. The best way to speed up the learning process is to get outside perspectives. Athletes hire coaches, entrepreneurs talk to mentors, and writers get editors. They don't just rely on their own judgment, they seek expert input. The more feedback you collect, the quicker you can fix mistakes and improve. Failing fast also means staying flexible. People who struggle with failure often cling to a single plan, refusing to adapt. But success requires adjustments. If something isn't working, change it. Pivot, refine, and experiment with new approaches. The ability to let go of what doesn't work and try something new is what separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. One of the biggest challenges in failing fast is overcoming the emotional weight of failure. Most people hesitate because they fear embarrassment or rejection. But the truth is, no one is keeping score as much as you think. The world moves fast, and people are too focused on their own lives to dwell on your mistakes. If you stop worrying about how failure looks, you can focus on what truly matters, learning and improving. Failing fast does not mean rushing without thinking. It means testing things quickly, gathering feedback, and making changes in real time. It means not wasting years waiting for the perfect moment, because perfect moments don't exist. Those who succeed understand that time is their most valuable resource. Every delay slows progress, while every quick failure speeds up success. The faster you fail, the faster you succeed. Every mistake gets you closer to mastery. Every rejection gets you closer to the right opportunity. The only real risk is standing still. If you embrace failure, learn from it, and keep moving forward, success is inevitable. The key is to fail fast, fail smart, and never stop improving. Chapter 12. Your next failure is your next breakthrough. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success. Every breakthrough, every achievement, every major victory is built on a foundation of failures. The people who win in life are not the ones who never fail. They are the ones who fail the most, learn the fastest, and refuse to stop. The only real failure is giving up before reaching the finish line. Most people spend their lives avoiding failure. They hesitate, overthink, and hold themselves back from taking risks. But what they don't realize is that by avoiding failure, they are also avoiding success. Growth only happens through action, and action comes with mistakes, missteps, and setbacks. The difference between winners and everyone else is not that they avoid failure, it's that they use it. Look back at your own life. Every skill you have today came from moments of struggle. You learned to walk by falling. You learn to talk by saying things wrong. You learn to ride a bike by wobbling and crashing. At no point did failure mean you weren't capable. It simply meant you were in the process of learning. That process never stops. The people who succeed are the ones who keep learning long after everyone else has stopped trying. Your next failure is not the end. It is a test, a lesson, and an opportunity to grow. Instead of fearing it, welcome it. If you take a risk and it doesn't work out, that's not a failure, it's feedback. If you try something new and struggle, that's not failure, it's progress. The only way to fail completely is to quit. Everything else is just part of the journey. The world is filled with people who stop too soon, writers who never published their books, entrepreneurs who gave up on their ideas, athletes who quit after a bad season. They all had the potential to succeed, but they let failure convince them they weren't good enough. The truth is, the people who succeed are rarely the most talented. They are simply the ones who keep going when others stop. The moment you change your relationship with failure, everything shifts. You stop hesitating, you stop making excuses, you stop waiting for permission to take action. Instead, you start moving forward, knowing that every failure is just another step toward success. You stop seeing failure as a sign to stop and start seeing it as a signal to push harder. Every great success story begins with a long list of failures. The biggest breakthroughs happen right after the hardest setbacks. Your failures are not roadblocks, they are stepping stones. They are teaching you, preparing you, and shaping you into someone who can handle success when it comes. The only thing standing between you and your goals is your willingness to embrace failure and keep moving forward. Right now you have two choices. You can stay where you are, avoiding risks, playing it safe, and hoping that somehow success will find you. Or you can take control. You can take control. You can take bold action, knowing that failure is part of the process. You can embrace mistakes, knowing that they are lessons in disguise. You can push forward, knowing that every setback is a setup for a comeback. The next time you fail, remember this: you are not failing, you are growing. You are not losing, you are learning. You are not stuck, you are evolving. The only way to fail for good is to stop trying. If you refuse to quit, success is only a matter of time. Your next failure is not something to fear, it is your next breakthrough waiting to happen. The only question is, will you keep going long enough to reach it? Take care and be well.